What you're looking at is the last of its kind, a track weapon with a V8 and a manual transmission. With the 6th generation and the engineering behind the 1LE package, Chevy has unleashed a monster capable of putting up a fight against even Porsches on the racetrack. The Camaro SS 1LE is simply something we can't get anymore, and is to be savored while we have it. Between its unbelievable performance and looking like it's going to eat your soul, the SS 1LE might just be an unbeatable bargain. Let's take a closer look at a pioneer of automotive technology and design. If you aren't familiar, the 1LE tacked onto the end of the Camaro SS name is a $7,000 package that GM offered from factory to take the big beefy Camaro as we know it and turn it into a machine capable of supercar performance in a track setting. We'll get into more detail on each item and it will become increasingly clear just how much of a different beast the 1LE really is. And if at any point you think you may rather spend the extra money towards a ZL1, then hop over to that review on my channel where I drove a ZL1 in a near identical spec to this SS that we have here. On paper, the drivetrain of the 1LE may seem identical to the SS, with the same 455 horsepower and 455 foot-pounds of torque from a 6.2-liter LT1 V8 out of a C7 Corvette. However, this is far from the reality. Beginning with the engine, the 1LE comes equipped with a much larger oil cooler working to keep the engine cool while at sustained high RPM. Both the transmission and differential also have fluid coolers not seen on the standard SS. Cooling is one of the most important things for a car on a track, and a lack of will do a car more damage than any other issue, so this is a massive benefit if you're even considering a track day here or there. The other and larger drivetrain difference is present in the differential, where an electronic limited slip differential, or EDIF for short, works to alter the torque sent to each wheel through a corner, offering far superior grip in a very sophisticated way. For normal street driving, this isn't a notable difference, but when the car is fully loaded through a corner, the additional stability is apparent, especially in the high speed or on a bumpy track such as my home track of Sebring. Also different with the differential is the shorter final drive, making for improved acceleration on the SS 1LE. It may not seem like a huge difference, but the 0 to 60 time is down to 4.2 seconds from 4.7 seconds with the longer gearing. The only downside, of course, is higher RPM on the highway. Only a manual transmission was offered in the early 1LEs, being the same lovely Tremec TR6060 I've covered in countless C6 Corvette reviews. A 10-speed automatic was offered in the later models, but this car deserves a proper manual. Automatic rev matching also eliminates the need for precise heel-toe downshifts on track, letting you focus purely on the brake pedal into a corner. It also makes traffic through stoplights much less of a hassle, and sounds like a bald eagle protecting its nest as it revs the engine for each downshift. Within the suspension and overall handling department is where the massive gains are really made. Working from the ground up, the SS 1LE receives a unique wheel, 10 inches wide in the front and 11 inches wide in the rear, to fit monstrous 285 and 305 width tires. Goodyear Eagle F1 tires are standard and reasonably priced, but I upgraded to the Michelin Pilot Sport 4S and have noticed increased traction with much less wheel spin at full throttle in second gear. Furthermore, the 1LE's wheels are incredibly lightweight, graphite colored so brake dust isn't as visible, and just look tremendous overall. Many SS owners swap to 1LE replicas just for the look alone because it fits the car so well. Under those wheels are larger 1LE specific front brake rotors with a 6-piston Brembo caliper instead of the standard 4-piston. From the driver's seat, when you get on the brakes, you feel like you're in a Miata instead of a 3,700-pound muscle car simply because of how powerful they are. Also, unusual for a stock car, the factory pad setup experiences almost no brake fade during a standard 20 to 25 minute track day session. Definitely still swap to high temp brake fluid for extra safety. Most Porsche 911s outside of the ultra high level trims come with a McPherson style front suspension paired with an independent multi-link rear. The Camaro has done exactly the same, and it's safe to say that it absolutely works. It doesn't rotate nearly as precisely or smoothly as the 911s I've driven, and you feel the weight of the car more without question. but it's pretty close with the 1LE suspension, and the fact that I'm even drawing a comparison to a 911 says enough. This is no longer a muscle car, it is a proper sports car with more than straight line speed. I would go as far as to say that it impresses me way more in a turn than it does when going wide open throttle onto a straightaway. Going deeper into what makes the suspension so capable, the SS1LE gets the FE4 magnetic ride control setup and suspension tuning from the ZL1, along with its springs and sway bars, which really stiffen everything up. Stiff springs mean a compromised ride quality, as fast changes in position like big bumps are countered violently and send a shock through the entire chassis. On the flip side, the magnetic ride control system means you can adjust the dampers through 3 settings: Tour, Sport, and Track. In Tour mode with them set to full soft, the 1LE becomes a bit more comfortable. The best way I can put it would be that when you're on a good quality road, it's super comfortable. However, when you're on a bad road, the ride becomes miserable rather quickly. It essentially exaggerates whatever the road quality is. In Sport or Track mode, the damping stiffens. Every bump is felt, the steering gets heavier, and the throttle mapping changes to become more linear rather than logarithmic. What I mean by that is with the Tour mode throttle mapping, you get a lot of throttle very early on. You don't have to press it in very deep to get to 50% throttle, but then you don't really get much more as the pedal goes down. They do this to make the car easy and casual to drive, but when you're looking for performance driving, when you turn the car into Track mode, the throttle becomes much more linear, where fine adjustments of how much throttle you're giving are far easier to actually do, and it's a much easier modulation, which will definitely help for high performance driving. One more thing to add on to with the driving modes is the exhaust, which comes with valves that fully open in Track mode, sounding completely glorious, a classic American V8 snarl. Yet in Tour mode, the valves close and the exhaust becomes shockingly quiet. What's awesome though is that you can customize each mode, so I usually street drive the car with everything set to Tour mode for comfort, but the exhaust in Track mode for the extra noise. Definitely a well thought out feature from GM. I want to take a minute to show you something that's been a massive help to me every time I work on one of my cars. This is the full repair and maintenance manual that dealerships use, which gives step-by-step instructions with easy to understand diagrams for any job that you can tackle. With such a great tool, you no longer have to dig through the internet searching for answers you don't even know if you can trust. Simply flip to the section that contains the job you're doing and save yourself a ton of time and struggle. Check out eManual online, where a quick search will turn up a manual for any year of any vehicle. These inexpensive manuals have saved me potentially thousands of dollars in return simply by keeping me out of the dealership where everything costs an arm and a leg. By doing things myself, I've also learned way more about cars over the years, which is an awesome added benefit. Right now, you can get 22% off any manual on the entire website using my discount code REDLINE22, which is linked along with their website in the description. Hopefully you find these as useful as I do and learn more about vehicles along the way. Over time, I've been fortunate enough to drive many cars in this price range, and the C6 Z06 is the only thing that comes to mind when I'm thinking about what even comes close. On a track under $40,000, the SS1LE wins out. It feels like a proper sports car, playful with loads of communication, but retains the muscle car glory when you put your foot down. A drive in this thing on a good road is just sensational, and it captures so many things we love about sports cars that are often lost in modern vehicles, from electrification and overdone technological assists. The raw, driver-focused nature and V8 manual rear-wheel drive setup that's becoming increasingly hard to find is exactly what pushed me to buy this one personally while I could. On the exterior, all 6th gen Camaros, but the SS or ZL1 1LE cars in particular look menacing. It's one of the angriest looking cars on the road, second only to the Lamborghini Huracan in my opinion. The attitude of the styling is a perfect match for the outlandish performance and capability that's underneath. Unique to the 1LE package is the aero around the car with the front lip, side skirts, and rear spoiler. The matte black mirror and hood wraps are also used to signify the 1LE. Each of these additions, paired with an already exquisite design, give the SS1LE a road presence like little else. The later cars got a different front end and different taillights. However, the 2016 to 2018 styling, like you see here on this 2017, is much cleaner and better looking in my personal opinion. Sharper lines are present in the front bumper on the early cars, and the bubble style taillights on the rear of the later cars just don't match the design language as well as the taillights that are shown here. The last thing to cover is the interior. This is a place where the Camaro absolutely destroys anything else in this price range. Gone are the days of plastics littered throughout a GM interior. Everything is high quality leather with intricate stitching patterns suggestive of the finest of craftsmanship. Unique to the 1LE is a suede material on the flat bottom steering wheel and shift knob, which are a satisfying tactile point. Also within the 1LE package are the Recaro bucket seats with more high quality suede, proper bolsters, and somehow immense comfort as well. Infotainment is solid with Apple CarPlay and intuitive controls. One of my favorite things is how the gauge cluster still has analog needles rather than just a screen, and the heads-up display is great for keeping an eye on speed, which you'll definitely need to do behind the wheel of this car. The back seats are nothing more than storage space and fold down to connect with the decently sized trunk. Unfortunately, the trunk opening is rather small, but if an object fits through that, there is plenty of space. Visibility in the interior, as I'm sure most videos on this car mention, is rather poor, somehow even worse than the 5th gen Camaro, but honestly you do get used to that within a matter of weeks. With the 6th generation, Chevy really began to form the Camaro into a proper sports car rather than just a beefy muscle car that makes a lot of noise and power. These developments started in the 5th generation with the introduction of the independent rear suspension, something that the rival Mustang wouldn't get for nearly half a decade later. An SS trim gives the Camaro the proper V8 an American sports car should have, but the 1LE package takes it a step further and transforms the car into something unrecognizable. You get the reliability and maintenance costs of a Corvette, the daily driving ability of an M4, and performance that blows many European and exotic cars out of the water. If you plan on any track use at all, the 1LE package is certainly a must. With it, the Camaro SS becomes one of the best value sports cars to potentially ever hit the market. This has been a car review with Running to Redline. Thanks for watching and have a great day.